where it refers to top cop attending EFF gala, a shameful, offensive slap in the face of South Africans. And it talks about General Khan, and it talks about the fact that his ticket for General Khan at this EFF gala dinner had been paid for by, shall we say, associates of General Khan, who were allegedly involved in the illicit tobacco trade. He's involved in facilitating drug trafficking with Nassif Modak of the Western Cape. Well, we know that Nassif Modak of the Western Cape is now in prison. 2, is involved in chop shops and the selling of the products thereof. And now chop shop is a colloquial term meaning places where you dismantle stolen cars into component parts and sell the component parts. He's involved in money laundering for criminals in the underworld. 4, he protects certain criminals, notably Mr. Pregi Padeachi, who is a close friend of ex-Deputy National Commissioner Vinesh Kumar Munu, who is currently alleged to be involved in illicit tobacco trade. And 5, he has no security clearance and would not get security clearance because of his covert criminal activities and questionable business activities. Now,
he had worked in different areas until this PSS division was started and he became part of it. It is there where he became closer to politicians. I'm sure majority of the people that are in the building, let me not say the African National Congress, honorable members, but the people that are within that building of the headquarters of the ANC knows Khan very well because he brags about it. He moves up and down that building. Members of EFF will come and say they know Khan very well because he's very tight with the lead of EFF. So Khan is this person who has played politics to get his way. And that's a danger that Khan brings into the picture. I said he's in charge of counterintelligence in the police. He was in charge of the vetting section where all the profiles of everyone sits. So he's a person who's been that powerful. So Khan started fighting with Khumalo, and he will come to me and complain about Khumalo. I will ask Khumalo. Khumalo will simply say, Khan's appointment is this post, which is support. The only thing I'm asking him to do is to go back to his post. He doesn't want to, because Gerald Jacobs had moved him, or before that, he had moved him away from there to counterintelligence. Counterintelligence is where activities are happening. And he wants to stay there because that's where the investigation of these hijacking, kidnappings, drugs are happening. So he wants to be there. But the fight with Khumalo is only about the position. That he doesn't want to be here, he wants to be there. So Khan remains a person that causes a lot of issues to date at crime intelligence. In the past, it was not him. There were many others. But at this present moment, it is him, the key player. And we believe it is Khan that influenced IDAC to behave in the manner they behave. Yes, others might have came in.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. O'Sullivan, if we could now turn to your page 11, please switch on your mics, both of them, the microphones. Thank you. We are now at your page 11, at item 1.4, and you have headed this Major General Feroz Khan.
yes.
You deal with that over the next 2 pages. So if you could highlight for the commissioners the key aspects of this subtopic.
Yeah, if I can suggest that we start with Annexure M.
That will be page 216?
Page 216.
Yes.
Annexure M, Commissioners, is an email that I sent to the then Commissioner of Police, Commissioner Sitoli. Kekla Sitoli was the Commissioner of Police in May 2021. And I copied Lieutenant General Lebea, who at that stage was the head of DPCI. And my email references a tip-off that we had received at Forensics for Justice. So just to be clear, Forensics for Justice has an online tip-off portal, and it also has a telephonic tip-off portal. So people can phone anonymously, and the number is 0800 118 118. And we occasionally get these messages through. And a message came through, and it was a demand to speak to me. And I phoned the person back, and he insisted on providing this information. So what we do, we often get tip-offs, and the information doesn't check out. It doesn't look like something that's genuine. Or sometimes what happens is you'll get a captain who's in dispute with a general, or a colonel who's in dispute with a general, and they'll make spurious complaints. And when we get these tip-offs, before we do anything, we look at the background of it to see if there is anything there. Otherwise, what might be happening is we might be aiding and abetting malicious tip-offs against senior officers. But when we received this tip-off, I met with the person concerned, and the information that was given on the tip-off is listed there. And I'll just read it out quickly on page 216. 1, is involved in facilitating drug trafficking with Nassif Modak of the Western Cape. Well, we know that Nassif Modak of the Western Cape is now in prison. 2, is involved in chop shops and the selling of the products thereof. And now chop shop is a colloquial term meaning places where you dismantle stolen cars into component parts and sell the component parts. He's involved in money laundering for criminals in the underworld. 4, he protects certain criminals, notably Mr. Pregi Padeachi, who is a close friend of ex-Deputy National Commissioner Vinesh Kumar Munu, who is currently alleged to be involved in illicit tobacco trade. And 5, he has no security clearance and would not get security clearance because of his covert criminal activities and questionable business activities. Now, these are allegations. They're not factually sound, but they're allegations. Now, when we got the allegations, we carry out some background checks, as I've mentioned. And in this case, what we did was we decided to have a look at General Khan. So attached to the email that we sent was the document, which is now pages 218, 219, 220, 221, 220, right up until, well, it's all these pages, right up until page 237. Because pages 218 to 224 is our research, it's the research we've done. But when the person gave me the tip-off, the person supplied me with the pages 225 to 237 as what that person considered to be substantiating the allegations. And it's not our position in life to make any findings about these sort of things. So when we get these type of allegations, what we do is we raise it. And the only place to raise such an important matter as this is with the National Commissioner. So we attach all these documents. As I've mentioned, Commissioners, pages 218 to 224 is our own research. And from our own research, we were able to see that at that moment in time, remember we're going back to 2021, General Khan was an active director of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 companies. Now, when we look at some of those companies, which we obviously did some background checks on, we were able to establish that some of the companies were involved in the spare parts business of motor vehicles. And you can see a couple of them there. One is called Spares Oasis. We were able to trace a premises where spare parts for motor cars are being sold from. Another one is called Magic Motor Spares. So when you look at all this, and by the way, there's a PTY called Spares Oasis, and there's also a CC called Spares Oasis. So we take all this information, and then we look at the lifestyle of the individual concerned. And the lifestyle audit that we did gave the indication that this was not a person living on a Major General's salary. It was a lifestyle of a person in a much more affluent position. So all we did was simply supply the information and then say, there you are, that's it. We leave you to get on with it. And it's not our job then to go knocking on the door and saying, hey, what have you done about this? What have you done about that? Because our function is just to supply the information. And that's what we did. And that's made clear in my statement on page 11. And in my email, I think I've said, we find it should be impossible for a full-time Major General in the police to be moonlighting as a director of 10 businesses, and at least 2 of those businesses indicate a trade in spare car parts, an activity diametrically opposed to the work of crime intelligence, given the high levels of vehicle crime in Gauteng. So we're just making the point. That's it. And we left it at that.
Okay. You then, firstly, did you ever receive a response to your complaint?
No.
You deal with another annexure at paragraph 1.4.2.
Before you do that, Mr. O'Sullivan, I'm looking at your page 218 in that big bundle.
Page 218, yes.
Yes, you've got that list of properties there. I just want to understand, well, it starts at 218 and it goes to 219. So you've got a list of properties and then you've got dates. So if we start at 218, the first property has got a purchase date, right?
Yes.
And then you go to 219.
So what 218 shows 2 properties, and on 219, so when you're doing the search, if you click with your mouse where it says title deed number, it generates the pattern that you see.
The reported 219.
So
Okay.
it's giving you an explanation of where that property is and what the purchase price was and whether there's a bond and the transfer document number and so on. So that's the information that you would gain from that. And then,
Yes.
of course, you're able to get the address. And as you see, the one is based in Houghton Estate.
Yes.
And
Let me ask you my question. It's about the dates that I wanted to ask. What is the relationship between the dates in the first box with the heading properties and then the dates in the box with the heading addresses? There's a different...
Oh, yes.
You
So
see
what happens is every time any individual applies for credit or opens an account or anything of that nature where somebody does a credit check, when a person does a credit check on an individual, they list the data that that person supplies when he does a credit check. So you would quite often end up with a situation where here, for example, where it says addresses, that date would relate to when that person supplied that address to either a credit provider or an account provider.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy. At paragraph 1.4.2, still at your page 11, you introduce an annexure N.
Yep.
Can you deal with the contents of your paragraph 1.4.2 and perhaps in so doing, place into context how you obtain that annexure N and under what circumstances?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you, Commissioners. So, when I was preparing my evidence for the Commission, during that process, I had to engage in, I suppose, a toing and froing process with Advocate Chaskelson, where I would be drafting certain things. And I said to him, oh, by the way, you know, this is what happened insofar as Major General Khan is concerned. And he said, did you ever see a letter from Ian Levitt, attorneys, complaining about you? And I said, no, I've never seen such a letter. He said, well, would you be interested to know there is such a letter? And Advocate Chaskelson forwarded this letter to me, and I was quite gobsmacked to see it. Because here I am making a complaint by way of a tip-off, and the information that we've supplied with that tip-off. And I supplied that complaint in, let me have a look at the date.
24th of May, 2021.
24th of May. So I supplied that tip-off on the 24th of May. And here we are 30 days later, or 31 days later, a month later, on the 24th of June, with this complaint coming through from Ian Levitt addressed to General Satoli. And it's coincidental that my email is addressed to General Satoli. Now, General Satoli never came back to me about my complaint.
And your annexure N starts at 238. That is then the letter that you say was written, addressed to the National Commissioner.
Yes.
By General Khan's attorneys.
Yes, and I've analysed this letter, and my problem with it, apart from complaining about me highlighting alleged unethical conduct on his part, the lawyer doesn't address any of the allegations whatsoever. No once does he say my client has done nothing wrong. The whole thing is about complaining about Paul O'Sullivan.
Yes. And at page 239, the same document overleaf, this letter advises the National Commissioner that a meeting subsequently took place between their client, I take it Mr. Khan, and yourself.
Yes.
Can you deal with the contents of that first paragraph?
Yes.
That suggests that a solution was reached.
So, thank you. Commissioners, you have to read paragraphs 4 and 5 together because they belong together.
Yes.
In paragraph 4, he makes the statement that he came to see me on the 15th of June, 2021. It could be correct. I can't remember because I can't remember back that far, but I do remember him coming to see me. And I was quite flabbergasted when he came to see me because when he sat in my boardroom, he said, "You've made a complaint against me." I said, "No, I haven't. I'm hardly going to admit that I've laid a complaint against him because if I say to him, yes, I've made a complaint, here's a copy of it, I may be guilty of the offence of defeating the ends of justice. So I decide, no, I'm just going to deny it." And then he says in this paragraph that at this meeting, I offered to confirm under oath that I hadn't made a complaint against him. Well, I just want to place on record that I never made such an offer. However, if we go on to paragraph 5 of the same letter, the lawyer says, "Pursuant to the meeting, our client made further inquiries and reliably ascertained that Sullivan," they obviously mean O'Sullivan, "was not being truthful, and that in fact not only had Sullivan laid criminal charges with the DPCI, but that Sullivan had accessed our client's personal information in doing so and in contravention of the Protection of Personal Information Act, POPI." And as I've pointed out earlier, we can access personal information, but not on an arbitrary basis. You can only do it if you're investigating a potential fraud or for fraud prevention or for corruption prevention, that sort of thing. So you don't just pick a person at random and say, oh, let's dig into this person. There has to be some probable cause, shall we say. So the tip-off was what made us do the look at this situation, and then we supplied the information. So quite clearly, since I'd sent that email to General Sitoli with a copy to General Labia, I've not shared it with anybody else. So either somebody at their office or they themselves have shared that information with General Khan. So I've now got him coming to my office demanding to know why I've laid a complaint against him. So I've had to deal with that issue. But I just denied it. I said, no, I didn't lay a complaint against you.
Did you ever pursue either General Libea or General Sitole regarding your complaint to establish what had become of it?
So as I mentioned earlier to the commissioners, if I had to pursue every single tip-off that comes through our office to the nth degree, in other words, to keep knocking on the door, but we're eventually going to become a nuisance to somebody. We receive the information, we validate it, and we pass it on. We package it and we pass it on. That's all we do. It's not our job to investigate it. So we just look at it, pass it on, and then we believe it's up to the police. And in this case, it was up to either General Sitoli or General Labia to look into it. But as I've said in my statement, I didn't hear from them again. So I'm assuming they didn't look into it.
In your statement, page 12, paragraph 1.4.4, you then introduce Annexure P, which would be your correspondence with General Masemula of 31st July 2023.
Yes.
And I understand from that communication that you shared the same Annexure M that you had originally written to General Sitole.
Yes.
With General Masemula. You deal with those issues at your paragraph 1.4.4.
Yes. So what happened there, Commissioners, on the 30th of July, 2023, which is now 2 years after I've laid this formal complaint with General Sitoli. By this stage, the Commissioner of Police is now General Masemola. So on the 30th of July, I look at News 24, and there's this scandalous article, which is attached as Annexure O.
That's at page 241.
241, where it refers to top cop attending EFF gala, a shameful, offensive slap in the face of South Africans. And it talks about General Khan, and it talks about the fact that his ticket for General Khan at this EFF gala dinner had been paid for by, shall we say, associates of General Khan, who were allegedly involved in the illicit tobacco trade. So I see this, and I think, wow, this is not good. It's 2 years since I've sent a formal complaint through to General Sitoli and General Labia. Now, I decide I'm not going to engage with General Labia again because I've already engaged with him and he's done nothing. So I write to the new, or then relatively new, Commissioner of Police, which is General Masemola.
Yes.
On the 31st of July, which is the day after I've read this article. And I say, dear General Masemola, it's most disheartening to read in the media about how rotten crime intelligence is. Police management know about this man Feroz Khan, but what is going to be done about it? And by the way, when I send this email, I attach to it, so I'm forwarding the original email that I've sent 2 years earlier. And I said, it will take someone explaining to understand how this man can jet around the country in a jet owned by a tobacco smuggling kingpin, Syed. Of course, I could have used the word alleged, but I didn't. And also drive around in Lamborghinis. I said, does it need for him to be caught with a smoking gun for the management to get rid of him? And when I talk about management commissioners, I'm talking about management of the police. And then I say, I'm copying the editor of News 24, as I believe the people of South Africa have a right to know what's been going on. And then I say, I finish the email up with, although General Sitoli did not bother to respond to my mail in May 2021, perhaps you will be able to do so.
Did you receive a response to this communication, and if so, what was, in summary, the response?
No, Commissioners, no response whatsoever. And by that stage, I think it became the order of the day that any such communications were just ignored. So that didn't stop me from making the communications, because later on, when we have a commission of inquiry like this, I can show, but hang on a minute, this is not the first time these things have cropped out of the woodwork. Here we've got the evidence that I've been continually supplying information and evidence, and nothing has been done about it. And that's why you're going to find later in my affidavit, I make it clear that actually police management does not take action against senior police officials unless they have an agenda or motive for doing so. And that is part of the problem that we have with the police service today.
You don't say in your statement, but besides the newspaper articles and the reports you filed following whatever investigations you did around General Khan's companies, was there any evidence that you provided to either General Masemola, General Libya, or General Sitole that constitutes evidence to support the allegations you make in your previous communication to them of May 2021? Or is it what you have shared with the Commission now that you made available to these generals?
I was not able to supply any prima facie evidence. If I had prima facie evidence, Commissioners, apart from notifying the management of the police, I would have opened a criminal docket. But you cannot open a criminal docket based on a hypothesis. So what we would have expected to do as Forensics for Justice, we expected the management of the police to take this and look at it.
Yes.
But unfortunately, nothing was done.